Thank you, Michael Emerson. I address a question to Mr. Prudhomme and possibly also to Mr. Abashidze. It concerns the link between the European transport infrastructure strategies, trans-European highways and corridors, and the Chinese New Silk Road initiative. And in Georgia, this is one place where these things come together. So my question to Mr. Prudhomme particularly is how far or in what ways is both the EIB and the EBRD concerting with the relevant Chinese interests on all of this, and whether on the Georgian side you see that happening well, adequately, or what? Thank you.
Well, it's really early days for this because this project came on the radar screen, so to speak, very recently. And as far as I know, there are no official consultations going on. But of course, EBRD and ourselves, as we cooperate in most of the projects that we do in this region, we will certainly also cooperate on this one and try to come forward with a common approach, a common strategy. So as far as I know, no official consultations with the Chinese partners as far as we are concerned. But of course, this might be different for the project developer as such, who will of course have much more detailed context. But as far as we are concerned, this process should only start when we launch, so to speak, the appraisal of an infrastructure project. And this has not started so far. I said it's on the radar screen, but within international financial institutions, you always have these different stages. And so far, there is no what we call green light to do the appraisal of the project. So it's in this first stage, and so then, of course, there are no official consultations.
I completely agree with what you said. Well, but what I have to add is this is the initiative of course, the European Union to develop the transit route through Caucasus, but also it coincides with the interests of China. So this was the One Road, One Belt initiative by Chinese, by People's Republic of China, and the interests coincide. And that's where we are as a country. So we are ready to host all your investments from EIB or EBRD or whichever it will be. So we are ready to transit the routes from and to Europe. And basically that's where the interests of all stakeholders come together. So that's why the corridor exists. And Asian Development Bank, EBRD, AIB and GICA also, they are together, and sometimes in one project, sometimes in a different project, but they are all there present. And EBRD is one of the biggest investors in Georgian economy now. So this is the reality. Thank you.
Thank you. I see, yes, please, another question.
Mamuka Guilava, ICZM National Focal Point for Georgia. So thank you, Mr. Abashidze. I have the question to same the panel members. So you described the major port development and the hinterland development multi-phase initiative for Georgia. That Georgia is currently developing a legislation for environmental impact assessment and strategic impact assessment. Would you consider strategic impact environmental assessment for this development plan for Georgia to be proactive in that process? And my question to Mr. Prudhomme is, would you consider to advise the government of Georgia to develop the strategic environmental assessment for that development? Would you consider also to advise the government of Georgia that international lending institutions or financing institutions advise developing the strategic environmental assessment for this major development?
Honestly, I'm not really informed about the part you are talking. I'm rather in a transport field. Of course, it's an environment-affected field, but I'm not really informed about that part, so I'd refrain to answer your question. Thank you.
This question actually relates also to what I said in the beginning of my presentation. If it's upstream advice or technical assistance of projects, then this of course would be done by the European Commission or the External Action Service, so to speak. If we come to the environmental impact of a specific project, then of course we could also provide assistance. But it all depends on whether or not the authorities would seek advice on a more general law, so to speak. Then we refer to Commission services, or if it would be on a project level, and then we would be involved, or could be involved.
Just to add a bit to the confusion of the whole picture concerning the modern Silk Road project. I'm saying this because we are very much involved in many of the events that are taking place concerning this concept. And there are many countries involved. But as there is no supra-governmental, supranatural entity leading or directing the development of this, let me say, concept, you see many countries taking the lead or the initiative. The only, let me say, factor that unites all these efforts is the active dynamism of China, as you mentioned, which is heavily investing in infrastructure, but not only, in most of the countries on this route. Imagine a bit the map, and actually we're not even talking about one route. There are more than one routes. It is the northern route, which includes Mongolia and Russia, the Trans-Siberian. It's the Central Asian route, which includes Georgia. By the way, when will the second Silk Road Tbilisi Forum take place? I don't know. I was at the first one, which was very interesting, and with a huge presence of a Chinese factor there also. And then there is also the southern route, which is the maritime route. So this is still an open geographic mosaic where the pieces fall into their place according to the initiative of each country on the road and the investment of mainly the Chinese, but not only. For instance, the European Investment Bank was present in one very recent event taking place on the Silk Road in Astana, in Kazakhstan. So we will be seeing a lot of action there, and we in BISEC say that there is no Silk Road without BISEC. Why? Because our member states are covering the very vital geographic region uniting Asia to Europe. We start from the North Pole going all the way down to the Mediterranean. So we will be trying to be very much involved in what goes on in this area. Thank you, and sorry for being so.
Thank you, Ambassador, and certainly your comment is very welcomed in the sense that obviously the importance of the region linking east to west has been highlighted, and also the importance of cooperation among the countries, because the link doesn't come through only one country, not only through one region, but interlinks all of them, bringing growth and jobs to them. Do you want to have a comment on that, or it's fine? So let's see if we have another question from the audience, please.
Yes, okay. Good evening to everyone. My name is Alla Kobolyanska. I am the senior economist of the civil society organization Promotion of Intercultural Cooperation here in Odessa. I would like to remember your presentation and the chart which represents the shares of European investment banks allocated in different projects, and I remember that a little bit more priority was given to the small and medium enterprises. That is why I would like to ask you, from your point of view, what are the main obstacles today for the development of small and medium enterprises in Ukraine, taking into account inside the internal and external situation Ukraine is currently now, and what are the main areas of growth you are considering as primarily one for the development of SMEs in Ukraine? What could be the main points of growth for the newly established enterprises here? Thank you very much.
Actually, this is a question for tomorrow, so to speak. I don't know if you will be here tomorrow. I don't have a complete list of obstacles, and usually I try to avoid the word obstacle. I would say challenges. There are, actually we had planned also as EIB a conference on SME financing, and more particularly on innovative enterprises as well. This was planned for the month of July. Unfortunately, it has now been postponed to the month of September due to the unavailability of some partners. So we will be happy actually, because it's not just in 5 minutes that you can answer that questions. But of course, it's all about creating what I said before. It's the same as for infrastructure projects. You have to create an enabling environment. People have to be able to rely on independent courts. They have to be sure that there is transparency. And of course, one very, very important point, which I mentioned also for the infrastructure project, is the development and the further growth of the local banks here. Because we, as an international financial institution, like others, we can provide long-term funding to banks, which they can on-lend to small and medium-sized enterprises. So we, as an international financial institutions, will not lend directly to SMEs, but it's really a challenge for this country, because you will probably know that the central bank has been reducing drastically the number of bank licenses. So what the National Bank, together with the IMF, is trying to achieve is to come forward with a lower number of banks, but banks that will be viable, and banks that also will have to upgrade their capacity to actually assess the investments of small and medium-sized enterprises. So, in my opinion, the biggest challenge, if you want to develop SMEs, is to develop the local bank sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we are running a bit. You want to continue with?
I apologize. And another part of the question was what could be the main areas of growth for Ukrainian SMEs? Thank you.
Any good idea can be financed. It's not about sectors, and it's especially not up to us to say where the sectors of priority should be. If an entrepreneur has a good idea, and the climate is such that he can develop it, why not? So many people say, well, there's a great future for Ukraine in the agricultural sector, in the agro-industry, and we are actually preparing a facility for refinancing of small and medium-sized businesses in that sector, and the man who can talk in great detail about that is sitting very close to you there. But we also have a much more general SME on-lending facility. But, you know, everybody who has a good idea and has a good business plan and can find the finance, why not? It's not limited to any one sector.
Okay, from my side, I would certainly like to invite you to invest in blue economy, as it's also the subject of our conference today, because I think we gave you already quite a lot of food for thought on possible sectors and how much the wealth of this region depends on the sea. So hopefully you will look into prospects regarding the so-called blue economy sectors when you develop ideas for SMEs. And we have foreseen also a session tomorrow specifically addressed to the needs and the possibilities for SMEs, but I'm coming to that. Unless there is another urgent question, I can take one more. Otherwise, I will consider the panel finished with this. I would also have to thank the panelists and thank you also for participating to the debate. At this point of the program, we had foreseen closing remarks by my director, Mr. Hubert Gams, who is director in DG Mare, dealing with Mediterranean and Black Sea, both regarding maritime affairs and fisheries. But he was here, but he had to fly back with the commissioner to attend some urgent business in Brussels. And so I will have the honor to do the closing remarks that we had prepared for Mr. Gams. And for this, if you allow me, I will have to follow a bit my notes here, not to forget anything. First of all, we are in the third Black Sea Stakeholder Conference, as mentioned from this morning, and we're very pleased to have such an important number of participants attending this conference, and also participants from different sides of stakeholders, the regional authorities, those that they represent the industry, those that represent administration, and hopefully that will bring us closer in developing initiatives for marine and maritime affairs sectors in the Black Sea. This was the first occasion I attended such a conference, but I was impressed by the quality both of the speakers and the questions that came from the floor. So that demonstrates the interest, and I hope that we did cover quite a lot of ground today, and particularly as I was very pleased with interventions regarding what are the possibilities for SMEs that we brought you at least some highlights regarding tourism, regarding research and development, and also the possible financing. Obviously, we cannot cover everything in one day, but at least we managed to show you what is in the offer regarding blue economy. Now, I believe we have also reached some conclusions, and first of all, I would like to say that from the EU side, we have a big role to play in promoting and boosting blue growth, and we need the support at national level in order to reach this goal. We have to have in mind long-term perspectives. I think this was mentioned also by participants in this panel, that it's not enough to have national plans. You have to look farther than the borders to develop this interregional cooperation and also see the potential outside specific sectors. I think the blue economy is something which interacts not only between neighbors but also between sectors. And when we heard the case for spatial planning, then you understand how much each sector development influences something else. So be very careful when you establish these plans, when you establish priorities, and here I'm addressing the national authorities, to be sure that you also think long-term, and think long-term with your partners. Sustainable solutions are what we follow in the EU, and we would like also you to follow in this region, because the sea is an asset. It's the means to get growth from it, but if you don't care for it, then it will not bring you the expected results, or not certainly in long term. Now, I would also like to say that we will support specifically a seminar on maritime spatial planning later this year, organized by the MedCoast Foundation in Turkey. So this seminar is meant to build up the capacities of the public administration to, in charge of this activity, and therefore I think you have to reflect and participating in such, particularly because I did mention the need for spatial planning reflection when you develop your long-term plans in Black Sea. Secondly, I think many good examples have been mentioned today on how cooperation between stakeholders at different levels can produce concrete results. In the research sector, for example, scientists from the region have developed specific objectives for the strategic research agenda for the Black Sea. Through the EU Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Program, they have obtained the necessary means to finance their ideas and particularly bring these ideas close to real and meaningful results, as we heard here from Promatec CEO. Now, by applying science diplomacy, as we heard, in this changing and interconnected world, we can have certainly better results. So the dialogue among the stakeholders is necessary, even particularly when we talk about research and development. Thirdly, to advance the blue economy and create the necessary conditions for investment, we need to gear up and build up proper capacities in the public administration, but also with business. So talking to business partners, not only within one country, but also among neighboring countries, brings new opportunities. And also the responsibility of the administration to create the conditions, infrastructure particularly, like we heard the examples of Georgia, is certainly what will facilitate the connection between the stakeholders. It was mentioned earlier on, I think by Mr. Prudhomme, that tomorrow we have a specific event where we will explain the possibilities that are offered under Horizon 2020, under the EU COSME program, and the Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs. And hopefully we will have quite a lot of participants from the stakeholders community and get much more answers to their questions. I would like to recall something that Commissioner Vella said this morning, that the Commission is here both at the higher level and in services level to hear your ideas, and so that we bring back these ideas when we build up a strategy, when we build up an initiative for this region. So with this, we need to make things happening not only when we have a conference like that, but what happens after the conference. I think on our side, we will reflect, as we promised, in developing further the possibilities we offer to this region, but also you yourselves, you need to think about how you cooperate and you build up partnerships. Before I close, I would like to give two practical comments. First of all, to say that we have a cocktail reception following up, so more networking is possible. You can also ask questions to participants. This happens at the Londonskaya Hotel, which is close by, so you're all invited to attend. And also don't forget to hand over your audio devices to the colleagues that are waiting there at the door. And this is then the final and the closing remark is to thank you all for being here. Thank you for making this conference possible, and hopefully we will have a fourth one even more successful coming up next year. I have to thank all those who participated to organizing, particularly the Commission colleagues, but also the colleagues from the Ukrainian administration, the Odessa region, the interpreters that helped us also to communicate today, and hope to see you soon and discuss even more the possibilities for Black Sea development. Thank you.